In July 2021, 6 months before he ordered the invasion of Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin did a remarkable thing. As Russian armed forces amassed on the border with Ukraine for what we now know was a full-scale dress rehearsal for the invasion, Mr. Putin immersed himself in Russian history, researching, reading, and eventually writing a 5,000-word academic paper on the historical unity between Russians and Ukrainians. Now, this paper, which has been described by some academics as a masterclass in disinformation, argued that much of modern-day Ukraine occupies what is historically Russian territory. It also questions the legitimacy of Ukraine's borders. Mr. Putin went as far as to say that Russia was robbed, and I quote, "I am becoming more and more convinced of this. Kyiv simply does not need Donbas." In February 2022, as Russia launched missile strikes against Kyiv, Mr. Putin described the city as the mother of all Russian cities and went on to say that Russia was fighting for its historical future. Hello and welcome. From the Times of India, I'm Miraj Shah. Today on GeoScope, an inquiry into Mr. Putin's interpretation of history and how this disinformation is being weaponized to justify the invasion of Ukraine. Mr. Putin's paper framed his arguments against the backdrop of Ukraine and Russia's relationship over the last 1,000 years. We'll take it up from the 18th century, so humor me for a minute here. In 1709, Russia's first emperor, Tsar Peter, defeated the Swedish armies led by King Charles XII near the Ukrainian town of Poltava. The Battle of Poltava is considered to be one of the most consequential battles in Russia's history. It established Russia as a great power in Europe. It also gave Tsar Peter access to the Baltic Sea that allowed him to build the city of St. Petersburg. Mr. Putin idolizes Tsar Peter, reportedly even keeping a bronze bust of the emperor on his desk. In June 2022, at an event to mark the 350th birth anniversary of Tsar Peter, Mr. Putin addressed a group of Russian entrepreneurs and reflected on Tsar Peter's conquest of the Baltic coast, calling it Russian territory.
Вот Петр I Северную войну 21 год вел. Казалось бы, там воевал с...
He wasn't seizing anything, Mr. Putin said. He was taking back. And now it has fallen upon us to take back, he added ominously. Mr. Putin went on to say that when Tsar Peter founded the city of St. Petersburg, none of the other European countries recognized the city as Russian territory. The parallels he was drawing were clear. None of the Western countries have recognized Russia's claims to Crimea, which it invaded in 2014 and has been illegally occupying ever since. Mr. Putin, on the other hand, has consistently weaponized history to justify his invasion of Ukraine. He's drawn similarities with the Second World War and claimed that Ukrainian Nazis are committing genocide. In a speech to school children in 2021 in Vladivostok, Mr. Putin spoke about the relevance of Russia's victory over Nazi Germany, calling it one of the most outstanding and significant events of the 20th century. Russian propaganda frequently describes Ukraine's elected leaders as Nazis and fascists oppressing the local ethnic Russian population, who need to be liberated.
На территории сегодняшней Украины начали создавать антироссийский анклав, который угрожает нашей стране. Поэтому ребята наши, которые воюют там, защищают и жителей Донбасса, и защищают саму Россию.
Now, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is Jewish, as is the former Prime Minister of Ukraine, Vladimir Grossman. Mr. Zelensky has reiterated on multiple occasions that he lost family. 3 of his grandfather's brothers were killed by the Nazis during the Second World War. It is also a fact that Ukraine lost more of its population than any other country during the Second World War. Putin's retelling of the Russia-Ukraine story does not mention the Holodomor. This was a man-made famine in the 20th century orchestrated by Stalin, in which over 3 million Ukrainians perished. In his own words, Mr. Putin is an outright denier of Ukrainian nationhood. In his paper, he goes as far as to say that former Soviet states, especially Ukraine, are not real countries. That mindset offers up clues as to why Mr. Putin may have miscalculated how long the war would last, or believed that the Ukrainians wouldn't put up a fight. The Ukrainians have shown no desire to be liberated. They fought tooth and nail and rallied around a strong sense of national identity. While Mr. Putin may believe that he shares some historical purpose with Tsar Peter to reclaim Russian territories that have been taken by hostile nations, there are critical differences. First, Tsar Peter won the war with minimal losses. Russia is believed to have lost over 43,000 troops in this battle. What does bear comparison is that just like in 1709, Russia's deployment of troops in Ukraine to change the geopolitical situation has had consequences. This time around, it has unified disparate security interests of countries like Turkey, Finland, and Sweden. NATO is stronger than ever. And lastly, Tsar Peter made sure that St. Petersburg was constructed to European sensibilities. He encouraged the adoption of Western technology and culture. He is remembered as the ruler who opened Russia's window to Europe. That window is slamming shut under Putin.